Russia-United Kingdom relations, also Anglo-Russian relations, involve the bilateral relationship between Russia and the United Kingdom. Formal ties between the courts started in 1553. Russia and Britain became allies against Napoleon in the early 19th century. They were enemies in the Crimean War of the 1850s, and rivals in the Great Game for control of Central Asia in the latter half of the 19th century. They allied again in World Wars I and II. Although the Russian Revolution of 1917 strained relations, the two countries were at swords' point during the Cold War. Russia's big business tycoons developed strong ties with London financial institutions in the 1990s. After the dissolution of the USSR in 1993, the countries share a history of intense espionage activity against each other, with the Soviet Union succeeding in penetration of top echelons of the British intelligence and security establishment in the 1930s to 1950s. Since the 19th century, England has been a popular destination for Russian political exiles, refugees, and wealthy fugitives from the Russian-speaking world. In the early 21st century, especially following the poisoning of Alexander Litvinenko in 2006, relations became strained, and since 2014 have grown unfriendly due to the Ukrainian crisis and to activities by Russia such as the suspected 2018 poisoning of Sergei and Yulia Skripal, seen as hostile by the UK and by many in the Western world. In the wake of the poisoning, 28 countries expelled suspected Russian spies acting as diplomats. The Kingdom of England and Tsardom of Russia established relations in 1553 when English navigator Richard Chancellor arrived in Arkhangelsk, at which time Mary I ruled England and Ivan the Terrible ruled Russia. He returned to England and was sent back to Russia in 1555. The same year the Muscovy Company was established. The Muscovy Company held a monopoly over trade between England and Russia until 1698. Tsar Alexei was outraged by the execution of Charles I of England in 1649, and expelled all English traders and residents from Russia in retaliation. In 1697 to 1698, during the Grand Embassy of Peter I, the Russian Tsar visited England for 3 months. He improved relations and learned the best new technology, especially regarding ships and navigation. The Kingdom of Great Britain, after Tsar Peter I brought Russia into European affairs and declared himself an emperor. From the 1720s, Peter invited British engineers to St. Petersburg, leading to the establishment of a small but commercially influential Anglo-Russian expatriate merchant community from 1730 to 1921. During the series of general European wars of the 18th century, the two empires found themselves as sometime allies and sometime enemies. The two states fought on the same side during War of the Austrian Succession, but on opposite sides during 7 Years' War, although did not at any time engage in the field. Prime Minister William Pitt the Younger was alarmed at Russian expansion in Crimea in the 1780s at the expense of his Ottoman ally. He tried to get parliamentary support for reversing it. In peace talks with the Ottomans, Russia refused to return the key Ochakov fortress. Pitt wanted to threaten military retaliation. However, Russia's ambassador Semyon Vorontsov organized Pitt's enemies and launched a public opinion campaign. Pitt won the vote so narrowly that he gave up, and Vorontsov secured a renewal of the commercial treaty between Britain and Russia. The outbreak of the French Revolution and its attendant wars temporarily united constitutionalist Britain and autocratic Russia in an ideological alliance against French republicanism. Britain and Russia attempted to halt the French, but the failure of their joint invasion of the Netherlands in 1799 precipitated a change in attitudes. Britain created Malta Protectorate in 1800, while the Emperor Paul I of Russia was Grand Master of the Knights Hospitaller. That led to the never-executed Indian March of Paul, which was a secret project of a planned Allied Russo-French expedition against the British possessions in India. The two countries fought each other during the Anglo-Russian War, after which Britain and Russia became allies against Napoleon in the Napoleonic Wars. They both played major cooperative roles at the Congress of Vienna in 1814 to 1815. From 1820 to 1907, a new element emerged: Russophobia. British elite sentiment turned increasingly hostile to Russia, with a high degree of anxiety for the safety of British rule in India. The result was a long-standing rivalry in Central Asia. In addition, there was a growing concern that Russia would destabilize Eastern Europe by its attacks on the faltering Ottoman Empire. This fear was known as the Eastern Question. Russia was especially interested in getting a warm water port that would enable its navy. Getting access out of the Black Sea into the Mediterranean was a goal, which meant access through the straits controlled by the Ottomans.